my favorite time of year. It is the mid-year freakout book tag. I don't know how we're in the middle of the year already, but we are not going into existential mode. Hello, book reading friends. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hello. Hi, my name is Mel, and today I bring you the surely much-awaited mid-year freakout book tag. It is our mid-year check-in, so if you don't know what the mid-year freakout book tag is, it's such a also long-winded title. Essentially, this is a mid-year checkup to see how our reading has been doing. So we chat about favorite books so far, most disappointing reads so far, books that we still want to get to, things that we're super excited about. We've got a bunch of questions that are going to basically sum up our reading year so far, and I am so excited for it. But before we head on, I want to talk about the sponsor of today's video, which is Book of the Month. Now listen, you guys know how much I love Book of the Month, but in case you're not familiar, they are a book subscription service, and every single month they choose anywhere between 5 to 7 new and early release titles from a variety of different genres, different authors with different stories to tell, so that you can take your pick and receive a stunning blue box every single month. And as if Book of the Month is not awesome enough, they now have a podcast called Virtual Book Tour. It is led by the Book of the Month editorial team in conjunction with Book of the Month authors. They've got 6 episodes out right now, and one of them is featuring Chelsea Abdallah, who is the author of The Stardust Thief, and I can't wait to listen to that once I finish the book. This is honestly a great way to get to know these authors better, what drives them, what moves them, where they come from, and what exactly drives them to tell the stories that they've written about. So don't say I didn't tell you, because it's currently available in both Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And because we're speaking about Book of the Month and their amazing authors, I've got 2 of July's picks right here. The first one is Upgrade by Blake Crouch, where evolution is not what it seems and it might just be a downgrade, and The Bodyguard by Catherine Center, in which we have a kindergarten teacher who is actually a bodyguard who is now entrusted to protect a super famous actor. So if you want to get any of these 2 books or any other from their July main selections, I will be leaving my link at the top of the description, and you can also use my code MelReads to get your first box for $9.99, which is an absolute steal for new hardcover fiction. And Book of the Month is also super cool because they are risk-free and you can skip or cancel any month and you will not be charged for that month. To be quite honest, it is one of my favorite ways to get new releases without having to do all of that research that can be so tedious, and that just allows me to read more, which is fantastic. So thank you so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video, and let's get into the mid-year freakout book tag. Okay, it is question time. I can't believe this is my 3rd time doing this. And for question number 1, we have best book you've read so far in 2022. As always, I can't just give you 1 book, but I'm gonna give you 2. And the first one is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, I was super skeptical about this because I had read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and I didn't really love it, but I went into this and you guys did not lead me astray. I absolutely fell in love with this. I fell in love with all of the characters and all of their messed up everyday shenanigans. Like, it was just so good and like so chaotic, but so good. And so in this, we follow Daisy Jones, who in the 60s was both a singer but also a groupie. She was constantly going after rock bands and sleeping with rock stars, and she was just living the high life in LA in the 60s, and her dream was always to become a singer. She was this sort of gypsy enchanting individual who was very much the embodiment of all things bohemian. And then on the other end of things, we got the Six, which is a band led by Billy Dunn, and lo and behold, they are not as successful as they'd like to be, and even though they do seem to have a clear direction, it also at the same time seems very aimless. And so on a whim, based on a suggestion, both Daisy Jones and the Six team up and they form their own band, and this slowly descends into the chaos of celebrity culture and drugs and sex and love and obsession and unrequited love, and how relationships are often very strained when you are constantly on the road without your partner, and it is just so good. The inspiration for this is Fleetwood Mac, and although it is not verbatim everything that Fleetwood Mac as a band experienced, you can see a lot of overlapping themes and things that we as audience members know went down, and the parallels with a lot of these characters and how a lot of things just again went down is just uncanny. But also the way that the author makes sure to make all of these things just completely their own and completely new is literally phenomenal. Like, I fell in love with this. And alongside Daisy Jones, I also have to mention Jade Legacy, because Jade Legacy is hands down one of the best books I've ever read. It was emotional, it was action-packed, it was tense, the progression of events, the actual legacy portion of it all, it was is just something else. And so in the Greenbone saga, because it is a trilogy, we follow the Cowell family who lives in Janloon, and the Cowell family are a part of the legendary Greenbone warriors. Janloon has a bunch of different clans, each with Greenbone abilities, but they all hold different areas and different political status. And we essentially follow this story with the new generation of the Cowell family, 3 siblings, as they start taking over the clan and attempt to fend off this oncoming war, both external and internal, against their clan and the country in general. And I will forever be in awe of Fonda Lee and the way that the entire world just felt so realistic despite also feeling so fantastical. If you're into martial arts, if you're into those classic gangster stories but make them Asian inspired, this is just everything you could want and more, because Fonda Lee really does nail that grittiness of gang mafia life where everything is at stake every single day and you never really know when you're gonna lose someone and you never know when tragedy is going to hit, and so every day is just living fully in the moment because everything can be snatched away from you in just a second. And beyond that, the political landscape of the Greenbone saga is probably one of the most realistic I've ever read in any book series. It feels real, it is detailed, the way that everything is set out, like it genuinely sometimes feels like you're sitting in a United Nations conference just because the politics just sound so spot on with how discussions are taking place in our real world. And so everything from the world, the magic with consequences, and also just the characters who are all so freaking flawed, and a lot of them are borderlining on the not being good people, but they are really just a result of the lifestyle that they live. And so I was just in awe of everything. Question number 2 is best sequel you've read so far in 2022. And it is Jade Legacy as well. Honestly, when I was thinking about sequels, I haven't really read a lot of them, but when I think about a standout sequel that genuinely did everything it had to do, it's Jade Legacy. Granted, this is the 3rd book in a series, it still counts as a sequel, but Jade Legacy just wrapped everything up so beautifully, and nothing in the series is just dropped on you as a reader. Everything is foreshadowed, everything has a red herring, and so everything that ultimately ends up happening in Jade Legacy, you read those and you go back to the previous 2 books and you go, Fonda, it was there all along, like it was there all along. And so it makes you freak out in the best way possible. So many tears are shed, and I could not imagine a more perfect ending for the series than Jade Legacy. Like it left nothing to be desired. It just gave it all. Question number 3, a new release you haven't read yet but want to. And now for this question, I obviously have several answers because I am the queen of anticipating a lot of books and not really reading them when they come out. But the first one that's actually on its way to me is The House Across the Lake from Riley Sager. Now, I also have a rocky history with Mr. Sager. However, The House Across the Lake sounds very good, and just the concept of a murder happening or some just really spooky things happening on your neighbor's house and you're kind of observing everything and could potentially get involved in the whole thing sounds really cool to me. Once Upon a Cape Prom by Kat Cho is another one that I'm really excited about. I absolutely loved Kat Cho's previous duology. This is a standalone, but Wicked Fox, you guys know, it's literally on display right there. Wicked Fox just gave it all to me, and this is literally, listen to the premise, 2 childhood friends who became distant because one of them became an idol, but before this whole thing happened, he had promised her that he would take her to prom, and now he is back to fulfill his promise as an idol. Obviously, Book of Night by Holly Black is another one I'm really excited about. Haven't heard the best reviews for this one ever since it came out, but I'm still super excited to read this. Shadow magic and a bunch of characters with some really dark backgrounds. It is Holly Black's debut adult novels. I'm just really excited. Seasonal Fears. I still haven't read this and I really have to. You guys know how much I loved Middle Game. It's one of my favorite books of all time. Kids being bred in very specific conditions by alchemists in order to attain godhood and literally take over the world. It's literally so good. Funny You Should Ask is another one that I just have to mention because I'm actually super excited about this one. We follow a Hollywood screenwriter called Chani as she literally marries the newest James Bond, and then we flash forward to the present. 10 years. They're divorced. divorced. His PR team wants her to come back and like do this whole thing, and I'm sure this is gonna be second chance romance maybe with a divorced couple who used to love each other, and maybe they'll love each other again. I've heard really great things and I'm really excited. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. My first one is Babel by R.F. Kuang, which I have already started reading, and what I have read so far, which is not a lot, is so good already. It literally comes out next month, but I'm super late. I literally got this arc like 2 months ago, and have I finished it? No. And just look at the synopsis for this. It's just the little taglines. Can powerful institutions be changed from within, or does revolution always require violence? And so this is basically a dark academia set in the 1800s, and we've got a fully diverse cast. I'm literally just so excited for this. I need to actually finish this. And also Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong, which I also am so freaking excited to read, because you guys know These Violent Delights is one of my all-time favorite duologies, and this is a companion series to it. It is set a few years later in 1931, and we follow a new set of characters while still retaining some characters from These Violent Delights, like Miss Rosalind and Elisa Montagova, and I am so ready. And the last one I have to mention is obviously The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake, because I absolutely adored the Atlas 6, and based on that ending, I just need to know what fucking happened next. Biggest disappointment so far: Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I really didn't like this. I gave this 2 stars. I genuinely don't think this is his strongest novel, and obviously let me give the man some credit. Not that he needs it from me, but this was his first novel, and so you can tell, especially because I read this after Way of Kings and after The Final Empire, after Skyward, you can definitely tell that this is not his strongest novel based on what he is doing now. There has been massive amounts of improvement in terms of story structure and writing and pacing and where exactly to fit what into the story. And so I definitely think that within everything I've read, this is his weakest. And this ended up not being an epic at all. Like, it is a fantasy. It's just not very epic. It's very political. It is very slow. And a lot of things don't end up making a lot of sense. A lot of things are anticlimactic in my opinion. A lot of things are very repetitive. And there's just nothing epic about it, because most of this takes place in very closed quarters, and there's not a lot of magic up until kind of like the last third of the story. There doesn't seem to be a lot of epicness in that. And alongside Elantris, I'm also going to say Kingdom of the Curse by Carrie Maniscalco. I was really excited about this. When I read Kingdom of the Wicked, I really enjoyed it. I was just all in for the witchy demon romance vibes. I was all in for it. And then this came out, and Carrie Maniscalco was all over Instagram saying, oh, this age is up. It's almost like new adult. And I was like, girl, where? Because I did not see that. I did not see that at all. This felt incredibly YA to me, except for the almost smutty parts without it being like full on smut. This book just felt even more young than book 1. And maybe if I went back and read book 1, maybe I'd feel different. But as I stand right now, this was just so bad. It was so bad. Everything happening in here was so plainly obvious to everybody but Amelia. So a girl is either slow or dumb or both, or I don't know what's happening, because this was not it, sadly. Biggest surprise so far. And for this, I think I'm gonna say Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. I am saying this is a surprise, mostly because I didn't know what to expect. I'd never heard of the author, I think. I don't know if this is Margaret Owen's debut, but I didn't know anything about the author. I really had no expectations for the story, and I walked out just absolutely in love with this, and this rekindled my love for YA fantasy, mainly because it felt so different from every other YA fantasy that I have read. It just felt so uniquely its own, and I love reading stories like that. I love reading a YA story that doesn't feel like it's reusing the same tropes, and that it's recycling the same sort of worlds and creatures that it's using. And we follow our main character, who is very much morally gray. She does not give a flying fuck about anybody but herself. She is fully there to make sure that she survives and that she is okay. She steals from people and she lies, and she has literally stolen a royal's life, and she is fully there for keeping the position too, up until she is cursed and Jules literally start growing from her body as a sign of her greed, and she now has a very limited amount of time to figure out her curse, which she doesn't even know what it is, to get these stones off her body before she freaking dies. And so it is so unique, very German inspired as well. It also had a lot of things that reminded me of Howl's Moving Castle, which was really, really great. Animal companions in here for the freaking win. And it was just phenomenal. The game of cat and mouse, don't get me started about the game of cat and mouse, because it was one of the highlights of this book, and Vanya and Emmerich are my faves. Another big surprise for me this year was An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. I had previously read most of this book, hated it, DNF'd it, didn't like it. It was sold to me as very akin to ACOTAR, and it couldn't be more different to ACOTAR. I think the only thing that's remotely similar is the fact that our main character paints, and if we know everything about Feyre Darling, it's probably that she sucks at painting and she thinks she's good. So Isabel is a painter and she works very closely to the Fae, and one day she is tasked with painting something for one of the lords of the courts named Rook, except that she paints something in his eyes that she is not meant to paint there at all, and now she is being taken back to his court to be held for trial because of her crime. And this is so short but so good. I ended up really, really enjoying it. It's lyrical, it's whimsical. Fae are terrible and they're nasty, and when you see their true forms, they're not pretty. Between the writing and the very clear at the end, because I didn't think that as I was reading it, but the very clear scheming that was happening without you even knowing, and everything was so calculated and people were conniving. It was just so very good. I take my word back. I was an Enchantment of Ravens hater, and now I'm a lover. Now I'm a believer. Favorite new author, debut, or new to you? And with this, I am going with two new to me authors, and those are Miss Olivia Blake with The Atlas Six and Ashley Winstead with In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I don't know quite yet if I am adding them to my favorite author category, but after witnessing both of these masterpieces and giving both of these books 5 stars, I am being turned into a believer. And to me, it's a very good sign that I've read both of these books and I want to read everything they've written. I don't get that feeling very often, but I've gotten it with these two, and I am going to literally read everything. Newest fictional crush. Now, I know that for this last year, I showed you the book that I was talking about. This time, I'm gonna show you fan art so that you can understand. Because first of all, Nico from The Atlas Six. Hello, mister. He was so sultry, and I think out of the entire cast, he just seemed the kindest out of all of them, which is a great strength to have, and it is very sexy, okay? Also, from Jade City, Mr. Hilo. I have a very complicated relationship with this man. We're not gonna talk about it because I talked about it enough in all of the Greenbone Saga live shows. However, Hilo can get it. Connor Kobold from Kiss the Sky. Christian Grey wishes he could be this man, and that's all I'm gonna say. This is as a pairing, okay? I couldn't decide between the two, so I'm pairing them up because I feel the angst between the two made me equally crush for them. Like, if I saw these two on stage in real life, I'd probably be like lusting after the two, and that is Daisy Jones and Billy Dunn, both as a unit. Holy shit, don't get me started, because all of those quotes about loving the right person at the wrong time, no, I'm not ready for the show. Newest favorite character. I have two for this, actually. The first one is Finley Donovan from Finley Donovan is Killing It. I absolutely love Finley, and I absolutely hate Finley at the same time, because Finley is the smartest yet the dumbest person I've ever read about. Also, she's just very lucky, because in real life, if somebody would be doing what Finley's doing, bitch would be caught so fast. But in this book, Finley is really doing all of the craziest, wildest things, and she gets away with them, and I love it. I just also love the comedy within the tension, within the mystery, within everything. It is just so good. It was so satisfying to read. I just absolutely loved Finley, and also her love for her children and how she does everything for her children is just something really beautiful to behold. I love stories about motherhood, particularly healthy relationships between the mother and her children, and this is really that. Like, she will fight to the death to make sure that her kids are okay, and I have to stand that. And also, the entire cast of The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. Literally, this whole cast was hilarious, but also each of their stories individually were absolutely heartbreaking. This is a gothic retelling of some of the most famous gothic stories, but with a feminist twist, which is just so good. So Sherlock Holmes is in here, Watson is in here, the daughter of Frankenstein is in here, the daughter of Jekyll and Hyde, and it is all around a good time. It's got these oral history method interruptions, which just add so much life to the story. It just gave for a really good time. A book that made you cry. Need I say more? A Little Life. I've never sobbed harder with anything than with this. I have nothing else to say. Also, Jade Legacy, I previously mentioned, I absolutely sobbed with this, and Daisy Jones and the Six, absolutely sobbed with it too. A book that made you happy. And for this, I also have two answers, and the first one is Wrath. Now, this book was so freaking wholesome. It genuinely made me smile. It is a buff nanny story. So it is the subversion of the nanny trope, if you will. So this is a male nanny, and it was so cute. There's just something to me about the single parent trope and the love interest winning the children over before they win the main character over is just everything to me. And so in this one, we follow Dr. Sloane Copeland, who is a doctor, obviously a surgeon, and she's got two little girls, and her nanny literally one day up and leaves, like, goodbye girls, leaves them by themselves. And when she gets home, they're like, mommy, the nanny left. And she was like, huh? And then she ends up hiring this man by a lot of recommendations that she's gotten from friends. And lo and behold, he ends up being a really good person and a hottie. And you know where it goes. And Finley Donovan is Killing It is another one that really made me smile as I was reading this because it was just so absurd in the best way possible. We obviously follow Finley Donovan. She is a writer, a struggling writer at that. And one day she is literally at a Panera Bread pitching her newest book to her agent. A person next to her overhears her and believes that she is an assassin for hire. And so they want to hire her to murder this other woman's husband. And low-key, Finley's game for it. So Finley Donovan is killing it. It was really great. It's a ghosty mystery and it is fantastic. Most beautiful book you have bought or received so far this year. For this one, I have got the We Hunt the Flame set, the Sands of Arawiyah set from Illumicrate. These are stunning. They are so different from the original covers, which are stunning anyway, but I just absolutely love having the characters in here. It's got some really great foiling, some really beautiful spines. It's got block sprayed edges in the bottom and the top, and then we've got some really nice stenciled edges. On top of that, we've also got some really stunning under the dust jacket foiling, which I just absolutely adore. Just, oh, look at that. And they are both signed also by Hafsa Faisal, so these are some of my newest prized possessions. I absolutely love them and I will forever cherish them. And last but not least, what books do you have to read before the year ends? Everything, everywhere, all at once. That's just where I'm at. I feel like everybody gives the same answer every time, and that is, the goal is to read everything on my shelves. Is that possible in a single year? Not at my reading speed, but as much as I can is my answer. As much as I can while I'm still enjoying myself, as long as it doesn't feel a task, as long as it's not overwhelming, as much as I can for video projects, for myself, for enjoyment, for my Patreon book club. Everything is my answer. And that is it for today. Those are all of the questions. I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, don't forget to give it a massive thumbs up down below. And also feel free to leave down all of your answers to all of these questions. Feel free to go ham. Let me know what your favorite books so far have been, the most disappointing. Literally, if you want to make a list and just answer all of these, let our girl know. I will literally be reading the comments, replying to all of them, and I'm really excited to see how you guys' year has been going reading wise. So yes, leave that down below. And if you've reached this point of the video, let's leave a single book emoji. Don't forget to subscribe down below if you haven't done so already. I'm constantly uploading videos I'm sure you do not want to miss. And if you want to support the channel further, help a girl further, I do have a Patreon. It is always linked down below alongside all of my social medias. Thank you so much again to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget that you can use code MelReads to get your very first book for $9.99. So thank you so much to them for being as kind and lovely as they typically are. I will be leaving my link at the top of the description, so don't forget to go check them out. I love you so much, and I shall see you on the next one. Bye guys.